So yeah,
But
yeah, that. And we're joined by our special guest known as Unsung, Sean, the mighty war hero, here to talk about a couple things. This is the Jake and Drake show. I'm Jake,
I'm Drake.
and we're here with Sean. So, Sean, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself right now, currently?
Hello, I'm Sean. I am a gamer, a dad, and a husband, and a homeowner, and a citizen of these United States, and a college student.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty good. What'd you do before all that?
I was in the military for 8.5 years.
And what'd you do before
I
that?
was a
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
before that I was in high school because I was one of the poors who could not afford or have the necessary intellect out of high school to warrant getting into tens of thousands of dollars of debt for the sake of getting a bachelor's degree in above water basket smashing or something. So instead, I enlisted and went and did things in other countries for a while. I
So, which branch were you in?
was in the army.
Oh, so no crayons for you?
I mean, look, unpopular opinion time. Being a guy that was only ever in line units, as far as I figure, the only difference between the Army and the Marines is the commercials. You know, I get it. Your boot camp's harder. Cry me a river. Get...
So when you joined, right? What was your main motivation? Would you say it was enlistment?
No lie. I've always wanted to be in the military. Like ever since I was a kid, I was like, bro, this is what I want to do. A lot of people have no fucking idea what they want to do whenever they, transition to adulthood. For me, it was like, yeah, I'm gonna enlist. I want to join the military. You know, whole family was in the military. I want to be in the military. I don't have these delusions of grandeur about using weapons and having authority over human life or none of that edgy crap. Where else do you get to get paid to work out and blow stuff up? You know, awesome, really awesome. So that's what I wanted to do.
So the rest of the shit you would say is icing on the cake.
Icing on the cake. What,
Yeah.
like
College monies, visions of
all that other
grandeur.
stuff? Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, yeah. The now everything I'm doing now is based on the transition that I had to make once I got out of the military. I didn't get out because I wanted to. I got out because my back is completely screwed up. You know, when you can't hump a ruck, you can't run, you can't be in the military. You know, so
Yeah, for those of us that have no experience in the military, just give me a typical day in the line unit, a typical day abroad, and a typical day stateside.
man, it just depends. Like
Well, typical, man.
again, it depends because when I was at the 101st, a typical day in the line unit involved lots of hip pocket training, 90 minutes of PT in the morning, and usually it was some crazy PT like running 9 miles or something. And for a big dude like me, like that was a lot.
9 miles every
Uh,
day.
no, no,
Oh, okay.
no, but like something like that, or some go run the O course or go run Cav Country, which is just a bunch of hills, you know. When I was at Banning, it was a little different because, it was over on Kelly Hill, uh, and every other unit outside of the 101st was 1 hour. And then when you get to, I guess outside the 101st, 10th Mountain, and 82nd, I guess those guys do 90-minute PT. Then when you get to, some of the other units, like you still got the morning PT and then take a break for breakfast to shit, shower, and shave, get something to eat. And in the mech units on Mondays, for sure, you're in the motor pool. Incidentally, you spend a lot of time in the motor pool even when it's not a Monday, because military vehicles have this tendency to fall apart when they're not doing anything. Uh, doesn't matter what type of vehicle it is, whether it's a Humvee or some kind of super cool combat vehicle. Just, if you're in a mech unit, you're going to live in the motor pool. Oh, well, where I was, we did lots of training. Like, all right, whatever, dude. You lived in the
You
motor
said you
pool.
said wait, hold on. Let me. You said mech unit.
Mhm.
So like battle tech, or what do you mean when you're talking about a mech unit?
Mechanized units of vehicles. Like there's vehicles in the 101st, right? There are a lot of wheeled vehicles. Yeah, I get it. 101st, bunch of dirty legs. Great. You went to lawn dart school. That's cool. I'm proud of you. But in the mechanized world, everyone's got a unit. So everyone's got a vehicle. Everyone's responsible for a vehicle. There's very few exceptions to that rule. And so as a forward observer, you get, if you're down on the line, you're responsible for a fist vehicle, which is a Bradley, which is a armored transport with a big gun on it, and got extra batteries for extra radios, and then the fist vehicle's got a cool computer in the back that doesn't work, and you just take care of it. And when you drive it, everything's fine, and when it sits in the motor pool for months at a time, it falls apart for some reason. Oh, you didn't take good enough care of your vehicle. No, believe me, I've been there doing all the dash 10 and been there on the pull and the packs, which is the engine and transmission and everything. Like we took lots of good care. I mean, that was the thing too. Like coming from like the 101st, like you take pride in everything you do, and you just kind of carry that forward. And if you've got good units that you're in, you take pride in something as silly as fixing a vehicle like that and taking care of it. And on days when you're not in the motor pool, you're usually just kind of sitting around finding something to do, getting told to do something, or going to do some kind of training, whether it's the simulator or the, for us, like a training simulator, like a computer screen projector, call fire missions. You'd, do hip pocket training, which is literally just walk out into the woods and, practice ambushing each other, split up into teams and do goofy stuff like that. And then you go home around 7 p.m. So, hold on.
All right, we'll take a break here. We good?
Yeah. And then so like out of like downrange, I mean, everyone's experience is different. So some people have been to Iraq, some people have been to Afghanistan, some people get stationed in a shithole, some people get stationed in a nice cush place. Again, like a typical day would just depend on what your job was, and not just your MOS, but like for how ours was broke out, like what the role of your platoon was. Like, so if your platoon was on Force Pro, well, your typical day is going to be spent pulling 8 to 12-hour guard shifts, depending on how your security is set up for where you're at in the world. If your platoon was on the OP detail, you'd be flexing out to OPs. If your platoon was the mission platoon, guess what? You're doing missions, so it just depends. And that's that's like 24-hour ops, basically, meaning like, so it's not like a 9-to-5 situation maybe it is for some people, but not for everybody. The funny thing is, overseas, things are distilled and simplified a bit. It's less complexity, seemingly. A lot of moving pieces, I guess, when it comes to putting together an op order for an actual mission. Overall, the experience feels less complex.
So you being a forward observer, like how many times you've been deployed? And assuming it was more than once, was it the same theater? Was it different theaters?
I've been deployed one time to a combat zone in 8.5 years. Not for lack of trying, it just lucky, I guess. And then the units that I've been to after the Army was all DA selected, so I ended up going to the 101st, deploying with them, coming back, getting DA orders to go to Fort Benning and participate in the Army or Fort Bliss rather, and participating in the Army Evaluation Task Force, which was a non-deploying TRADOC unit, and it was basically a force comm unit that was stood up in order to test a bunch of stuff for the military. And then after that, I got orders for Korea, and then while in Korea, I got orders for Benning. By the time I got to Benning, they were just coming back from a deployment. And so the inner soldier in me thought, well, they're just coming back. I'm just coming back. We're going to have a year build up like most of the units in the Army do. And then go back. And it's like everything started to wind down towards the end of like 2010 and 11. And so I just spent 2.5 years at Benning, and there was like nothing going on, not for that unit anyway. Weird, but that's how it panned out for me.
So what would you say your when you were over in Korea? What was it like most of the time when you were in Korea?
That's a mechanized unit, so motor pull Mondays followed by
a little bit of
trying to find things to do.
So you guys didn't spend a lot of time in the field in Korea?
Surprisingly, no. The funny thing is, so I enlisted in 05. Before the GWAT, there was a lot of Korea used to be kind of like, Korea and Germany were kind of like the places to go to train because they were on the bleeding edge of the Cold War, and those units were always hard charging, training all the time type of units. And people can argue with me about the validity of that. I mean, my experience and explanation of that is only really sort of secondhand. It's from people that were there, and the way they described it to me was not what I thought it would be when I got there. Not that it was like a bad place. It just with people coming in and out every year, it's really hard to have stability and continuity of personnel, and so things happen. They're forced to happen, and you don't actually feel like you feel like there's a lot of continuity with op tempo training and stuff like that. And as a young NCO, as a young non-commissioned officer, as a team leader, it's hard to make things happen. So the best you can do is the things that are within your purview, the things you can control, the things you can sign for, but beyond that, there's not a lot you can do.
So, as a guy that's been to Korea a couple times, I've only done one alert my entire time I was there for 2 years. So why don't you just go ahead and run me through what these alerts were for someone like you, being a foreign observer?
You get down to the motor pool, you fire up the vehicles, and you get ready to. You stand by, and
hurry up and wait.
You get into a column formation in battle order, and you stand by and you wait for orders.
Nothing came of it, no.
I mean, I don't want to get in too far into the weeds of my opinions of those types of things. It was just a thing you did, and I think while I was there, we had two. And they're unplanned. They're not. You don't know they're coming. It's just, hey buddy, going on alert. 4 a.m. Let's go. It's. I mean, it's not. There's two kinds of people in the military, I suppose, when it comes to their attitudes about shit like that. Either everything fucking sucks or everything's fucking expected. And you can be an everything fucking sucks guy. And a lot of junior enlisted, even I was like, this fucking sucks. Eventually I got to the point where I was like, well, how do you eat a shit sandwich? One bite at a time. Just get out there and start working. It's not going to get any easier. The mountain doesn't get any shorter. The thing you have to accomplish doesn't, accomplish itself. So that's kind of, it wasn't particularly hard. I'm not like, I was a regular Army soldier, and I never did anything that was like super try hard, don't have jump wings. I didn't go to ranger school or any of that stuff.
Did you get a cab?
Well, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean,
But
I got one of those. But,
that's not a try hard thing. That just I was just asking if you got a cab.
yeah.
Did you get an EIB?
No, no. I
But
participated in EIB training for the call for fire.
you guys get the opportunity to do that though, right? Because you guys are attached to infantry guys. So
yeah, I mean, I think anybody that, unless I'm completely wrong, I think anybody can go out and get an EIB. I don't think anybody is allowed to wear it. I think you have to do 11 series to wear it.
really, there's those guys that fix the Bradleys. What are they called?
Bradley mechanics.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah, there's a guy that works with me. He's got one. Wears it all the time.
Did he used to be an 11 series?
No, he's always been a Bradley mechanic, but he got his EIB, just like anybody else could get it. So
Maybe I'm crazy.
I don't know either. Should I call him out?
That's your prerogative, my friend. I'm not in anymore.
He's a cool dude. I didn't know that.
Is.
I didn't know you had to be. It's like being a airborne unit wearing a purple beret, right? Maroon beret. You got to be
Maroon beret.
Airborne cert.
So no, because the command dictates the uniform. So there's like an airborne air defense unit that was at Fort Bliss back when air defense was there, and not everyone was jump qualified. Not that I give a crap, but they all wore maroon berets because it was an airborne air defense unit. You know what I'm saying? Now, I didn't care. I had some buddies that were in that unit at Bliss that came from the 173rd, where you are jump qualified to be in the 173rd type of situation, that took issue with there being basically a bunch of legs wearing a maroon beret. But I don't purport to do any of that, or again, as commanders, I think the commanders get to decide that kind of stuff. Like take for instance, in Ranger Bat, right? I got some buddies that were Bat Rangers. They, if you're in Bat, you wear a tan beret, but you haven't necessarily gone to Ranger school, right? And so, not every Ranger in Bat has been to Ranger school, but they've all gone through this very intense selection process. They used to call it RIP, and they changed it to RASP, and it's really arduous, and all the people in Bat are badasses, basically, from 25 series up to the 11 series, and the medics and the fisters and all that. And, but like, they get an opportunity eventually, I'm sure, to go to Ranger school, but not everybody in Ranger Bat who's gone through that very arduous selection process has gone to Ranger school. Then you got guys that have never been to Bat, but have gotten to Ranger school, that are in all these other units, and that's really cool. I mean, those guys are hard charging dudes, especially like, you always tell, like, when you get a brand new lieutenant, like as a fister, he's been to Ranger school, because I guess officers get to go to Ranger school right out of their basic officer courses for becoming whatever they're going to be. They're usually hard charging, or if they're fresh back from Ranger school, they're usually like walking death for a month while they recover, and then they turn into hard charging dudes. But never been, so I don't really know. I mean, I always looked up to those dudes, because they always, fuck, man, that's cool, that's badass. You're a badass. I never went. I was not good enough. And then I ended up getting married, and all these delusions of grandeur of becoming a super soldier evaporated pretty quickly. Priorities changed. I'm not saying that. No. There's plenty of dudes that was like, I was a Ranger and I had a family. Like, all right, cool, dude, man. My bad. Everything changed for me. I don't know what to tell you. I don't have the heart for it. I'm like, I'm a quitter. No, I'm not. I never went. Yeah.
So you got to a point in your career where you were just kind of realizing, like, okay, well, things have changed because my personal life situation has changed, and all those cool things that maybe I thought I was going to do, maybe I don't need to do them, or.
Yeah, if I had to give any advice to anybody that wants to do that kind of shit, like, get it done early, bud. There's plenty of dudes I've seen that got it done late, but, get it done early, while you still got the mojo and the motivation to do it.
Mm. Yeah.
And the recovery time from your body?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of that plays into it, too. When you're in, as long as you're motarded and motivated enough, you're too dumb to quit and too stupid to die, and you do things that you wouldn't normally do, uh, especially with the sort of the ire that comes along with not being tip top when you're in a line unit, you know. So
So I want to ask you. I want to ask you a few hypotheticals. So I guess you brought up a
okay,
good one. I always look at it like alternate universe. I don't want to look at it like you don't exist where you are now. I never like asking somebody like that, but where you are now. Now assume that in this alternate universe, if you had to pick like maybe one or two things before you met Jackie,
yeah,
or maybe after you met Jackie and you still had the mojo, or maybe you were still dumb enough to do that
dude.
shit.
If I could, like, let's say, excluding the fact that I love my wife and my kid, right, and everything I got right now is awesome. If I go back and change anything about militarily my career, I'd probably fight to stay at the 101st. Instead of just kind of accepting my fate with being on orders from DA to go to some unit in Fort Bliss, you know, like, uh, and maybe it's a little bit of golden age thinking, talking about how my first unit was my best unit. Maybe that's not everyone's experience. For me, though, like, everything in the 101st was great. It was harder. Everything was harder, but like not stupidly harder. I didn't realize how like strong my leadership was there until I went to units where I didn't have that anymore. You know, um,
Essentially, you were that leadership, whether it was for whoever's junior and yourself. Kind of had to, I
Not
guess.
necessarily. It's just I don't know, man. Like it was weird. Like when I was at Fort Campbell, every day I'd get on post, and it was like it's like it's time to work. And for the most part, everyone had that attitude, no matter
Mm-hmm,
how bad it was. And
mm-hmm.
then when I got to like Fort Bliss, everyone was just miserable. Nobody wanted to be there, like
Now, were you in the same type of unit though, or comparably
no,
speaking?
because because the unit at Fort Bliss was technically it fell under TRADOC, but it was built like a force com unit. So we didn't actually do any training of IET soldiers or anything. We weren't force com, you know, like we were in TRADOC, and so and the two units, it was more than that. There was two combined arms battalions, and they were incomplete battalions uh, that were put together with the intention of testing new equipment. And nothing as cool as you think it is, but like it's testing stuff.
So that'd be the one thing. You got anything else? Any other regrets? Any schools you wish you had gone to?
Regrets?
Regrets?
Yeah, honestly, yeah, I would love to have gone to air assault school. While I was at the 101st, didn't even do that, man. A lot of people, whoa, you didn't go to air assault school? I'm like, yeah, dude. As soon as we came back, I had orders. Like me and like 20% of the other dudes in the unit. It just, you know, and and I think the reason why, even if I had fought to stay there, I don't think there's nothing done about it. Like it was one of those things where, like, there were guys coming from basically all the units that were coming back at the time were like Fourth ID, 173rd, First Armored, and 101st guys were kind of the units that were deployed at the time, and they were when we stood up this unit, that's all that was there was Fourth ID combat vets fresh off the deployment, 101st combat vets fresh off their deployment, 173rd combat vets fresh off their deployment, and First Armored Division combat vets fresh off their deployment. So it's like they wanted our fresh experiences to help us with, maybe providing insight into this new equipment as we're testing it. Who knows? I don't know. But it was a real big deal for the DA, so the Department of the Army. So people that were sent there were sent there, you know.
Mm. DA select, buddy. Look at you.
Not really DA select, but in a way, yeah.
Something I want to segue off of. Tro's a big weapon guy. He's a big
Yeah.
weapon guy, so Tro kind of wanted to. Excuse me, Drake. My apologies. Hold up. So something I want to segue off of is that Drake Drake's a big weapon guy. Talk to Drake about some of the shit that you shot.
Shot everything, man. Every crew served, every small arm. You know, I've gunned on a Mark 19, on a M2, on a 240. Didn't carry a saw. Carried an M4 with the 203 underneath.
But the daddy of all those, General Electric's M134.
Oh man, I wish I knew what the hell that was.
Minigun.
I'm a driver, not a mechanic. So a minigun, you don't get those in any of the units I was in.
So you just lied to us. Our first guest lies to us saying he shot everything.
Everything that's in the normal purview of MTO for infantry units. Yeah, I don't think I've ever been to an infantry unit with an M134.
I didn't even know what that was.
It's a minigun. Probably maybe air defense units have it. You know, maybe some of the SOCOM units have it, and they put it up on like a remote weapon system or something. Or
I don't know what each unit gets and all that. I just remember helping a friend make a mock minigun for the top of their Humvee when he was doing he was with a PSYOP unit, and they were going to do some training stuff. So they rolled out with their loudspeakers blaring and you know, the advanced Humvee had the minigun, so it would look like it was a part of a certain type of battalion, something like that, not the small unit.
I couldn't tell you, bud. When in Iraq, our gun trucks in the rifle companies that weren't the Delta company, which was our motorized company or heavy weapons company, you know. So Alpha Bravo Charlie ABC company were like your standard rifle companies. Delta company's a rifle company too, but they had a lot of heavy weapons. The rest of the companies, our gun trucks were equipped with 50 cals, Mark 19s, and 240s. And in Delta Company, they basically had the same equipment. They just had more of it. And then you had a couple of clue mounts for BGM 71 tows, which I fired tows to. Fired the small D's, tows, AT4s, you know. That stuff's cool, but, you know, it's expensive to shoot. So you don't get to fire them that often. You know, maybe higher tier guys get to shoot that stuff, you know. I know we sent some dudes to Javelin school, learned how to fire the Javelin. That was cool. You know, a weapon system I wish I could have shot at one point in time was the Gus, Carl Gustav, but I never got to fire one of those. Never got to see one, you know.
What the hell's a Carl Gustav?
Recoilless rifle, a multi-purpose recoilless rifle. There you have a warhead for just about every situation. It's really cool. I think the Rangers use them. I'm sure all the SF, they get access to whatever they want. I'm sure they get to use them too. Maybe there's some light infantry units in the Army that spend the money on them too, you know. Oh, and I guess the big gun was on the Bradley, the M242 Bushmaster. It's a 25 millimeter chain gun. Fired that, taken it apart, cleaned it, operated that. That's actually a cool gun. I mean, it's a beast. I mean, if I remember correctly, the barrel weighs like 90 pounds. The lower receiver weighs like 120 pounds. The upper receiver weighs 70 pounds. It's a bear to try and operate, you know, like remove and disassemble, so clean and function test and all that stuff, because you're operating inside of a turret. So, like, you know, this is your range of motion, you know, but it's fun to shoot. That's for sure. You know, I never fired one in combat, but I basically spent my whole life in mechanized units after the 101st. So I was married to the Bradley for most of my career.
Damn, dude. So, no. I'm sorry, lost my train of thought. Nothing actually related to the FA itself. Like you never got on an M70 M777 or
No,
so Paladins or MLRS.
They may, you know, I don't know how things are in the big army now, because I was in the big army, you know. When I was in, my orders weren't to a field artillery unit, and then I get detached and sent to an infantry unit. My orders were to the infantry. Nowadays, I'm sure they might be a little different, but like when my dad was, incidentally, my dad was a fister. And when he was in, they were assigned to the field artillery units, and then they would be detached, not necessarily via orders, but if they were the fist team that was, like their fist platoon was the platoon that was responsible for this infantry battalion, or that infantry battalion, or that cav squadron, or this tank battalion. And that's how it worked.
So basically, they were like originally they were a forward support company, and then they would get attached to an infantry battalion, and then
in the rear they just belonged to the artillery unit, whichever regiment or battalion, and then that regiment or battalion would belong to that maneuver brigade, and so each fist platoon represented whatever that infantry battalion would needed their forward observers for anything. And then they changed it at some point. All fisters were always down on the line, and that was, I didn't know what to expect. I just thought I didn't know any better when I first joined. I was just like, oh, so I'm in an infantry unit now. Okay, cool. Didn't know anything about. I didn't expect to go to an artillery unit. I had no idea. I just, like every other brand new private, is following orders. This was my 41 and 87 says is to go to 1st Battalion, 506 Infantry Regiment of the 101st. Okay, here I am, and then do work. So, but then I found out that, and I guess there are fisters that are assigned to artillery units, but I've never met them or interacted with them, I'm sure they're great dudes, it's just a matter of where you end up. I've never been outside of being assigned to a maneuver battalion. I've never been at the brigade level. I've never worked at the battalion level, incidentally. I've only ever worked at the company level, in terms of 13 Fox work. So as far as my experiences with field artillery, I mean, yeah, I've called lots of field artillery fire missions, what fister hasn't, I even called some downrange, surprisingly, in Iraq. I know. Fight me in the comments. It happened.
Catch you outside. How about that?
But it's pretty hardcore stuff. And it's the artillery is pretty freaking incredible. Not going to regale you with all the idioms about artillery being the king of battle. It's extremely freaking destructive. It's awesome.
What's the closest you were to an actual fire mission that went down?
I was 1,500 meters away from my first fire mission in Iraq.
How'd that feel?
You feel it in your chest. Those 155s firing basically the back azimuth of the OT line, coming back from like the, to me, target guns firing towards me to the target. Obviously, they're not gonna hit me, but the target was about 1,500 meters away, 1,506 meters away as a rangefinder. From
so, quick question on that. Have you? I've done a lot of research in blast overpressure and things like that, primarily in relation to suppressors and how, in addition to the sound and stuff like that, it reduces the blast overpressure from constant shooting. In my research, I found a lot of data about and studies about the effect of artillery. Have you, in your life, had any issues or anything like that from the blast overpressure or from the time working in those units?
So I was never on the gun line, so no. And I've never been so close to an impact for artillery where it's affected me like that. I've been on the receiving end of mortars, enemy fired mortars. That's terrifying. I've never been shelled in the open, thank God, but all it takes is one to ruin your whole career. So, as far as any effects that I might have received, I mean, I didn't used to have to wear glasses, and I have to wear glasses now, and I've got tinnitus in both my ears, so there's that, but nothing super quantifiable, I mean, those are both, I guess, on my VA records. But
Did you get the shitty yellow 3M earplugs?
man, I got the same earplugs everyone else got, so probably, yeah, absolutely.
I know there's a big lawsuit and things going on that class action. And
them and Raid Shadow Legends are in cahoots with the same marketer, so. No, I mean, yeah, there's a big lawsuit going on. I mean, I wore them. It was in from 2005 to 2013, so I've worn them in every situation where you should be wearing AirPro.
So you're less than a mile away, and you're feeling a 155 round, and you're wearing your full kit, or are you just wearing like a plate carrier? What do you got on?
I'm wearing the IBAS IBA. This is before the IOTV.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wearing combat loadout.
Does it blow you over? Are you get
No. You just feel it in your chest, man. I mean, it's wumple, wumple. You just feel it. That's the thing that, like, you miss whenever you see, like, in a movie, for instance. Like you see the explosion, and then you feel and hear the explosion afterwards because there's a delay. Because it travels at 350 meters a second or whatever it is. So
yeah.
And it's not just with artillery either. Like whenever there's CCA helicopters, right, and they're doing rockets and firing AKGM 114s Hellfires and doing their gun runs, like you'll see the rockets, you'll see the flash, you'll feel it. Like if you got NOD on, you'll see the flare, or if it's daytime, like you'll see it, and then you'll hear these shrieking rockets coming down. And it's a split second later, and it's surreal. It's a visceral experience, like it's, and I don't think it would make movies better if they showed that. I'm just saying, like, and I don't ever look at them and go, not real, just like, an action, whatever, the thing, I mean, you feel these noises, you feel them, like, just as much as you see them and hear them, just like you feel, a gunfight. It's very different than like shoot. Like a two-way rifle range is terrifying. Like, I'm gonna be real with you. It's fucking terrifying. Oh my god. I mean, it's cool. I mean, yeah, I guess. But when your first experience, you're an 18-year-old kid. You got your basic and your AIT, and then you get shipped off to the 101st. And everyone around you's a Billy Badass, and you're the FNG, and you get into your first contact. You want to live up to the expectations that have been placed on you by these, these staff sergeants and these specialist team leaders and stuff. And so, you don't do anything crazy. You do your fucking job, and you listen, and do exactly what you're told, because they know you don't know. So the best thing you can do is do exactly what you're told, and don't try to do anything too much on your own. Not saying you don't help people. You don't try to, give information when it's pertinent. It's pretty wild. That's for sure.
It's pretty interesting perspective. So let me go back to like a hypothetical again. You versus you. So if you were to look at yourself,
yeah,
all the shit you've dealt through with like motor pool Mondays and eating a shit sandwich and getting shot at and blowing shit up.
Yeah.
Tell me what you feel your 8.5 years has done for you as a man to get you where you are, as far as when we talked about, you're a husband, you're a father, you're in college, soon to be a graduate, you're a homeowner, all these things. What the hell did all this shit in 8.5 years do for you to get you where you are now?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you one thing it's done. It's helped me build perspective. It's helped me. It's helped me understand that, hard things are worth doing sometimes. It's not, oh, you can learn that anywhere. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. The perspective that I have isn't like a salty curmudgeon-y perspective. It's more just well, if people are going to piss and moan about it, I'm just going to do it. Whatever. It's not that freaking hard. It could be. I could just join them and piss and moan about it and be a whiner, but I'm not even like a super dude or anything. I'm just a normal guy. I don't run marathons. I kind of get a kick out of watching people do it. If that's the height of their achievement, more power to them. I get it. It's a lot of training that goes into it. More power to you. I want no part of that shit. I've done enough. I don't think I'll ever run again if I can avoid it. Granted, I could probably stand to lose some weight. I'm getting fat now. I mean, I am fat now, but
yeah, get back in the gym, bro.
Yeah, I know, right? I need to lift again. Go to the small arms repair shop. But I, just to do it. It's no one's going to do it for you. That's the perspective. I said, it doesn't make me feel some kind of way about what other people do or how they do it. It gives me the maturity to understand different styles of leadership and how to, interact with them. Not every civilian leader is a total piece of crap. Not every civilian leader is a total great person, just like not every veteran's a hero and not every veteran's a dirtbag. I'll tell you one thing that's blown my mind since I've been out is the incredible number of people that in the back of their head are so dissatisfied with their own contributions and service that they go out of their way to embellish or talk up some of the things that they may have experienced or done or been a part of. I've met more people that have worked with special forces in some capacity since I've been out than people that haven't, and that's always been a curiosity for me. I just feel like everyone I've run into had something to do with special forces. I'm like, all right, cool, dude. And the funny part about that is like I actually did, but I wasn't them, I was just a regular Army dude, you know what I mean? But I'm not so dissatisfied with what I did that I got to talk about what I did with relationship to their participation on a level like. It's just mind-boggling to me. I have the utmost respect for all those dudes. They're Billy badasses. They're giants among men that are doing great things for this country and for the military. And they got balls that go clang when they walk. Doing hardcore shit. But yeah, it helped me build perspective. It's not an elitist perspective. It's just a perspective that helps me understand and communicate with people and know how to communicate with people, and when to.
So do you feel like joining the military, even though it's something that you always wanted to do, do you feel like, let's say you didn't join, like, would you have a house? Would you be married? Would you be in college or graduating? Would you have a kid? Like, do you feel that joining the military altered where you are at all today? Do you feel you'd be more appreciative or less appreciative? Would you be more the guy that shuts the fuck up and eats the shit sandwich? Or would you be, how do you feel like you would be if you just took a different path?
Man, I don't really know. I probably would have gone to college, sure. Then, been exposed to some different ideologies at a younger age. The funny thing is the military doesn't really expose you to ideologies the way some people would have you believe. There's a lot of brotherhood and esprit de corps and camaraderie and all that jazz, but no one's preaching ideology in the military. It's just the military, so we're all here, this sucks and it's hot, let's get to work. Like, if that's an ideology, then I guess, but it's not, like this misbegotten idea that Oh, veterans, you need structure. You're incapable of critical thinking and managing yourself in your own time. I know this because I went to college and I read a book that taught me how much structure you need. It was called Guns, Germs, and Steel. It was in one of my history electives. So, me, as the managing director of this HR department, knows that you'll probably need good oversight in order to be a well-functioning cog in the machine here at Brickworks McBrickerton. You know, like, nah, dude. There's a lot of people I know that, you know, maybe from inner city hoods or bumfuck middle of nowheres that are some of the best critical thinking human beings in the world, some of the best problem solvers in the world. And, you know, that, and it shows because, you know, generally those guys end up getting promoted and becoming leaders. And, you know, out in the civilian world, maybe they get passed over because, you know, I guess there's a point in the military where careerists sort of supersede the egalitarian meritocracy that the military should be. But like in the civilian world, you know, most middle management, if you're in a job in the civilian world and there's legitimate professional development going on, that's pretty stinking cool, you know, because for the most part, managers are garbage. And it's not their fault necessarily. They're just people who are now in a leadership position making more money, who were never trained to actually cultivate the people underneath them. You know, in the military, even terrible leaders are supposed to cultivate the people underneath them. It's kind of written into their job description. So even if they are bad at it, there's cultivation going on. Even with absolutely toxic leaders, there's cultivation going on. And whether they're good or bad at it, I mean, who knows? Everyone's experience was different. I didn't have the greatest experience. I didn't have the worst experience, you know. So
give us a general oversight on the foreign policy. Foreign policy when you were in. Like, how did you? I mean, if you're comfortable divulging, how did you feel about what? I mean, at the end of the day, you're a soldier. They tell you to fucking jump, you fucking jump. But
sure.
How did you feel about doing what you had to do? And then even when you weren't doing the shit, and you're, because I mean, you just as well as I feel the same way. I'm just sitting here and just fucking twiddling my thumbs, waiting to do something, watching everybody else do something. You know, how did you feel about the foreign policy when you were there? Contrast that to maybe when you came back, and then ultimately, now that you're out and you're watching shit go down as it goes down now, how do you feel about it today?
Well, we were in an armed conflict in a foreign country, in two foreign countries at the time on a large scale. And that was Iraq and Afghanistan. And, you know, we were on, where I was, we were on the sort of cutting room floor of what was happening. So foreign policy was 10,000 feet above us, you know, like nobody was thinking about foreign policy. Not that we ignored it. It was just not in our mind. It was like, we realized very quickly that in the people in the place we were in, they weren't the bad guys, obviously. It's just people that lived there. The bad guys were coming from all over the place to fight us. And they were doing some pretty horrendous things to the local population to embolden the local population against supporting us, as sort of reprisals. We did everything we could to accomplish our missions, which was to pacify the area we were in, take out as many of the assholes that we could while we were there. The funny thing was, for a regular Army unit, we had a lot of very kinetic operations. We weren't doing any kind of super secret squirrel stuff. We weren't just walking around the streets in the daytime either, you know. Like a lot of, you know, doing a lot of doing the best we could while we were there, really. Fighting every fucking day. It's not an exaggeration. I don't think there was a day that went by where we contact of some kind. And a lot of people will hear that and go, whatever, you were in Iraq. bro, where I was, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, man, I'm not speaking about where you were. I'm speaking about where I was, you know, like it was pretty miserable, you know. A lot of contact, a lot of direct action, a lot of indirect action, a lot of pot shot mortars, a lot of rockets, just all kinds of goofy shit, IEDs, all that crap. So, yeah, it wasn't exactly easy. And in terms of foreign policy, I mean, I guess maybe if I had to think about it, and then of course this is hindsight, I don't really know if they knew what the foreign policy was up top. Like maybe they had something written down, but I kept thinking about like not what the fuck we're doing here, but like, you know, okay, once we pacify this place, like what's the next step? You know, I guess like what else are we gonna? And of course, a couple years later, I hear that, you know, the place is, you know, pretty well normalized and stuff, and you know, that's good. But then, you know, we pull out, and you know, ISIS, IS, whatever, they take over, and you know, that power vacuum gets filled by some other group of shitheads. I mean, let's be real. We got to look at it. You know, no longer speaking of as a private on the ground who was there and his opinions of foreign policy, which are moot and don't matter. You know, in the Middle East in the late 20th century, the 5 pillars of power were basically Iran, Iraq, Israel, Syria, and Egypt, militarily speaking. Now, you count Israel in there because, well, they've been kicking everybody's ass for 70 years, 80 years or whatever. And, you know, when you topple one of those pillars of power in Saddam, you know, because he used to be at our hip pocket, you know, because before my dad went over there in 91, he was our guy, you know, and then all of a sudden he wasn't our guy anymore. You know? So it's awful because a lot of Americans fucking died doing this shit twice. And, you know, so in hindsight, I'm not 100% sure what we accomplished. I'm not speaking against it or anything. Just in hindsight, is they're fighting for each other. And I know that, you know, it may seem like a logical cop out, but we're there to do a job. And we did our job, and decisions were made echelons above our reality afterwards that led to total destabilization of the region. I'll tell you one thing. Here in where I live, I met plenty of people that are from those areas. And when I talk to them, and I do talk to them, you know, I mean, I don't avoid them or anything. We'll see people wearing hijabs and people of Middle Eastern descent, and they feel some kind of way about it. I mean, it's not strange to me. I just, you know, the conversation usually starts because I've got a tattoo on my forearm that says kafir, and they ask me, what does that mean? And I'm like, it's kafir. You know what that means? I was like, yeah, I know. That's how the conversation starts. It usually ends up talking about where they're from, where I'm from. How did I get that? You know, why do I have that? You know, and I tell them, and they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. You know, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Baghdad, or I'm from Basra, or I'm from here. You know, and now they're living here, and I just tell them, I'm glad you're here, man. You know, like I'm glad you're not there anymore. Because I'll be real with you, the Iraqi people, they don't give a fuck about all that shit that was going on. Their homes were destabilized, bro. Could you imagine doing that to America right now? Any city in America? Oh, wait.
Well, it's happening right now.
We'll talk about that later. But, I mean, having all your infrastructure literally be swept out from under you. Not just law enforcement. I mean, I'm talking everything. You know, medical, you know, water, electricity. You know, and the thing was, before we did it, before we went there, that country was running. Granted, it was a regime, and Saddam's bad, and, you know, he murder rate kills people and all this shit, but gas the Kurds, that's awful. Fuck that guy for doing it, but man, you know, the lives.
Are there anything that you would change?
That I would change, bro? I don't know. Maybe a coup over an election, but, you know, America's been meddling like that for decades, you know, and And the thing
longer than
is,
decades, but
sure. I mean, we've only been around for a handful of decades if you count them all up. But you know, it's really just not. Oh man, you know, maybe a couple years ago, I felt like, you know, if you're going to go to a place, you got to do it like Germany and Korea after you're done and never leave. The only reason you stuck around there was because the big bad red wolf, you know. Fear has dictated our foreign policy for a long time, and that fear propagates in the opposition, as it were, of the other foreign powers who stand on the other side of the wall from us, you know, formerly the communist powers and things. And so now we're kind of dealing with this sort of post-communist vestigial world where, you know, we've got, you know, power projection all over, and we're spending a tremendous amount of money on global defense, really, in the name of national security and national defense. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying, if you're going to spend that much, you got to be smart with it. It's not a bottomless well, you know. I mean, there used to be a time in the American body politic where, you know, they'd fight and argue about the dollars and cents that went to the day-to-day operations of the government. Imagine that. And now it's a bottomless well that they exercise their authority with. You know, who knows if there's a cure for all that. I suppose we'll just keep mortgaging the future. But, you know, everyone's got a phone now. Everyone's got the internet. Everyone's got access to the distraction, the great distraction, whatever it is. And once you get the blinders on, it's really hard to look up from your, you know, pull your head out of the sand and look around and realize just how crazy everything's gotten. And I'm not even talking about like all the civil unrest right now. I mean, it's an election year, so.
Drake says that a lot.
Some people go all in, and some people know when to hold them. So I'm not trying to make a political statement. I'm just saying, like, bro, some of these people are in the wrong weight class in the wrong gym fighting a fight right now. I don't think they get it, man. And I don't feel some kind of way about none of this stuff. You know, it's just me watching. I'm like, just bro, you just need to, like, you really should not stand in front of a police car like that or whatever it is, you know, like, bro. I was coming home last night. I was working the land center for my buddy, and I'm coming down a road in Richardson, Texas, and I'm coming down Arapahoe. It's an east-west street that intersects US 75, a large north-south artery in the Dallas Metroplex. And I'm in the number one lane. That's the far left lane for those of you playing the home game. And I'm just listening to an audiobook. And it's 1 a.m, Saturday, so Sunday. This dude comes tearing out in front of me, cuts me off, whatever. I really don't care. You know, just slow down. So out there, we both get to the red light, going to go to the underpass under the highway to get on the highway. So we're going to make a left. We're both at this red light. I'm sitting there, you know, listening to the audiobooks, just not really caring about what's going on around me. I see the car door open on the backside of this dude's car, and I'm like, what the hell? The rear passenger door opens, and a young man gets out, young black guy. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? You know, is he okay? You know, first thing I think, is he okay? You know, because, you know, it could be a medical emergency. The dude could be having a stroke, heart attack, or he might just be getting out to yak. It is last call on a Saturday night. You know what I'm saying? He might be getting out to yak. Yeah, I've been there, right?
That'd be me.
But then I see the passenger door, the door in front of him open, right? And another young black man gets out, and I'm like, well, I hope they're okay, you know? They walk across the lanes of traffic. There's a little concrete island kind of where people can turn right to get onto the service road to get on the highway, right? So we're all the way on the left. They get out there to this little concrete island, and they start squaring up. They start boxing each other. And I thought at first, like, maybe they're just like playing. No, like, dude, throwing hands, going for broke, right? Trying to whip the crap out of each other. And not 15 seconds later, the cherries and berries are behind me, and I see the Richardson Police Department roll up on them, and immediately they drop their hands all sheepishly and try to walk back to the car. The cop gets out. He's got his yellow taser drawn, and he's like, no, sit down. I'm just thinking to myself, like, God, nothing good happens after midnight. I only say that, I guess, to say this is, on average, I feel like more than anything right now, the American psychosis is like becoming like a real thing with the average citizen, I suppose. Not that I'm not a part of that. I just mean like I think there's a heightened level of stress, a hypersensitivity to stressors that a lot of people are experiencing right now. And if there's one thing that the military did absolutely inoculate me to, that's a tremendous amount of static stress, the constant ever-present stress of existence, not, being faced with my own mortality because I'm a super edgy super soldier. No, just like constantly being under stress. Like I eat this shit up. It's no big. Do I recognize it and see it for what it is and see how it's kind of reflecting unhealthily on me? Yeah, sure, I see that. But, for some people, this might be the hardest thing they've ever done is putting up with quarantine and the spring break never ends. You know what I mean? And so I feel bad for them. I don't laugh at them. I really genuinely am like, man, this must suck for some of you. Because for some of you, like summer camp is about as rough as it got for you. And this must be awful. I'm not even talking about the loss of jobs and loss of houses and all this other. I mean, tragedy strikes everywhere, but I'm just talking about some of these poor people where like this is legitimately the toughest thing they've ever done. And I just feel bad for them, like I hope that more than anything, I hope we get on the other side of all this and everything's okay. More than that, even, I hope that we learn from it somehow. I hope we pick up on something and learn from it.
That's always a staunch believer in that. Learn from that shit.
So that's, if I feel some kind of way about any of this, that's how I feel about it. It's dangerous to have an opinion nowadays. That's for sure.
You're always good on our show.
No, I know. I'm just saying, in general, it's dangerous to have an opinion. Got to be careful who you talk to.
That's very true.
I try to be completely benign with my opinions,
your mind,
even ever stating it.
Dude,
No, for sure. If it's something that, if someone's, posing a direct challenge to me about, a particular stance on something, I'll be like, I'll either tell you or I won't, but I won't bullshit you.
Yeah. How do you feel about what's gone on lately, as far as the foreign policy, specifically in the Middle East and, old suburbia, Russia?
You remember how on like shitty old cop shows, there's always that salty cop's like, I just say we drop him into the hood and give him all the guns and let God sort him out, As stupid as that sounds on a foreign policy level, like, hey man, we're a sovereign nation, y'all are a sovereign nation. Take care of it. It's not our pig, not our farm. Well, wait a minute now. Wait a minute. The only thing standing between China and Taiwan is the Seventh Fleet. It's like, yeah, well, okay. Not our problem. I'm sorry. And I love everybody all over the world. But like, it's not, you can't be something and not be something at the same time. You either commit whole hog to American imperialism or you sort of centralize and you kind of internalize and you realize that there's a lot going on here that needs help. Because you can't, we got a lot of issues. We got a subscription to issues here in this country, and we need to work through a lot of that. We got school districts in this country that don't have shit. This was before the pandemic. And we're going to shithole countries and doing things to help prop them up for what? these places don't give two fucks about us. They don't give two fucks about, people growing up in poor America. There's a lot of people growing up in America. Black, white, brown, doesn't matter. There's a lot of poor Americans. And so I'm not saying we need to just pick them up or not. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm saying we need to create opportunity for these people, build better environments for these kids to come up in and, stop with this sort of cycle. This is your lot in life, and the only two passports out of the hood are athletics and the military. That's not you got whole urban centers where that's the truth. You got small town America where that's the truth. In every small town America, in these flyover states, like for the most part, there's this nice little towns. There's also like a meth factory somewhere in that town. You know what I mean? Like it's just the way, and so it's not all good. It's not all bad. If you wanted to spend a fortune on something, you'd spend a fortune on the country.
I do feel like though, between the Israel, UAE, and of course Kosovo and Serbia, that things are looking a bit up. I mean, I'm not going to say anything's a done deal till everything's a done deal, but contrast 8, 12 years ago, 16 years ago, we're talking about, 2 presidents ago. I am saying that in North Korea keeping its cool. I will say that things, and I think to the chagrin of a lot of people on one side and the lament of people on the other, it's just a lot of. I just wish that people could objectively say, regardless of it, whether you feel like Cheeto Man bad or Cheeto Man good, like, well, you know what? Where we thought we were going to be is not where we are, and at least for the time being, give some people their due, because I am on the tail end of my career, and as much as I've kind of been like, I want to go back one more time, I'm actually kind of like, well, dude, that'll be that time I go over there. And then the next thing you know, maybe if I'm lucky, I'll be looking down from St. Peter's Gate, and they might have a fucking gym named after me with me mounted on a fucking, Humvee operating a 50 cal while the rest of everybody else gets the fuck out of it. So to me, I actually feel like, as far as foreign policy is going, it looks promising, and it looks promising for the first time in a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah, it started in new fights, that's for sure. A lot of people forget that we've been in Kosovo since Clinton. And we've had boots on the ground in Serbia, in Bosnia, in the Balkans since Clinton. But the American consciousness is so disconnected from what the military does. And I think that, that's all part of the plan, really. It's inconvenient, but it's every divisive type of really ugly thing. It's really disconnected from the American consciousness. That's why you have so much blind faith in things, blind faith in the military, blind faith in the government, blind faith in the police. You have this sort of idea that we accept that everything they're doing is good, and if something bad happens, well, but it's when you pursue that and propagate that, you lose the most important of all of that. It's accountability, and it's not Trump's fault that there's a lack of accountability. I think there's a lot of grandstanding going on where people talk about how, oh, these peace deals are no big deal. It's just, wins before election year. I'm like, nah, dude, it's wins despite election year. You know what I mean? Like there's no grandstanding with regards to how he's brokering the stuff. Oh, Nobel Peace Prize. Well, it's just, he's just doing that because it's election. Like, no, man, these dude's been working his ass off. It's like every president does, win, lose, or draw, they still work. May not be the way you want them to work, may not be how you want them to work, or solving the issues you want them to solve. But, there's a lot of issues that are being, blown up and propped up right now and people tweet about them on their phones made with slave cobalt and slave lithium in Africa, but Black Lives Matter, I suppose, and they do. But there's a lot of like, it's a tower of hypocrisy that they're broadcasting from. You know, it's like the issue only matters here. It doesn't matter in sub-Saharan Africa. The issue only matters here. It doesn't matter in China, whether you're at the iPhone workshop or you're a Uyghur in Western China. You know what I mean? So, like, that's kind of like one of those things where you can't say anything without someone finding fault in it. You can't say anything without people presenting these sort of logical or illogical arguments against you. I've done a good job on my social media personally, just kind of keeping my opinion to myself, not because I'm afraid or I don't stand for anything. There's plenty that I stand for. I want to know what both sides of the spectrum think, so I haven't alienated either side because I've got opinions that would alienate both sides. Believe me, I really do, and it's just one of those things where I don't.
But that's how you show that you won. When you piss off both the Democrats and the Republicans, you're getting 3 votes. You get a vote for your candidate, and then you get a vote for, because you're not voting for the Democrat candidate, then it's obviously a vote for Trump. And if you don't vote for Trump, then it's obviously a vote for Biden, or the reality, it's a vote for Harris. But, so that you get 3 votes, man. That's winning. Yeah, piss everybody off. Fuck them all.
I'm not trying to piss everybody off. I really want to know sort of I want to be in tune with the psychology that drives people to feel the way they feel about things and to post the way they post about things. And and the people that post, they post, and they post frequently. I don't post shit, like I just read them. I read them. I don't like them or dislike them or comment. I read them because I want to know what they're, and some of these people I know very well. And so I kind of understand where they're coming from, and I can see how they would formulate an opinion. And a lot of it, the vast majority of it is just invective. It's just crap, but from both sides. But, I want to understand. I want to build more understanding. Not because I need to make a more informed decision. I already know what decision I'm going to make. Whatever decision that's going to be, it's going to be based on my perspective, what I feel to be right. But I want to know where everyone's coming from across the spectrum, and I'm not going to make a decision just to spite someone else. I'm going to make a decision for me, and that's the great thing about being a citizen. That's what you get to do. No, there's a lot of problems, justice system, first past the post electorate, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, sure. Now let's start voting and like making decisions based on how things that'll drive those decisions, make it important. Well, I'm just going to tweet about it, post about it, or whatever. All right, cool. Then do that too. Whatever you want to do, whatever makes you feel better, guy.
The biggest issue I'm seeing with that social media, and we actually are planning on doing a more in-depth coverage on the subject at some point, but is that the people are so used to, or have been so used to and conditioned to seeing what they want to see. The algorithms from the programs and things like that, or from the companies, cater to that. That's how they market. And so they keep putting up information you want to see, and it ends up building up this echo chamber. So there's no challenge to your thoughts, and when suddenly it's election season and everybody's posting shit, now suddenly these people are suddenly confronted with different viewpoints that oh my God, how could you believe that? Oh my God, you voted for Trump, you're a Nazi. Or oh my God, you voted for Biden, you're a communist. And not realizing people can vote for their, based on their conscience, what they believe. Just many people are just single issue voters. I'm a gun guy, and guns are a very big part of what I look at when choosing who I would vote for and support. So we've come to that point in life with social media and the vitriol, because these are people who haven't been confronted with challenging viewpoints, and I think that's one of the big problems that we're facing right now in our country, because we are so divided by politics. It's turned into either you're for us or you're against it kind of mentality, and that really sucks.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with making binary issues that are absolutely not binary.
That too.
Um,
For fuck's sake, our presidential election is not a binary issue.
Well, unfortunately, because of the nature of American politics, it is. I know there's a third candidate.
There's more than three even. There's
a third important one, but as long as we continue with this system of first past the post elector, there's not a lot we can do about it. And this all goes back, several centuries when the founding fathers were slapping all this crap together, trying to figure out how to avoid some of these pitfalls. And these are the same imperfect, in some cases slave owning, in some cases business driven, in some cases maybe purely, for the good of the colonies driven mindsets. But if we want change, we have to, quote President Obama, we got to be the change we want to see.
But for instance, the change I want to see is neither a Democrat nor a Republican sitting in the Oval Office. So then tell me, if that's truly, if we really are a two-party system, my voting, my conscience, how does that harm you? Other than
I never said it did.
Well, I'm not saying you, and I'm not saying you're one of the people who are saying that, but just playing devil's advocate against the, unfortunately that's how it is.
Well, that is
but it's not. There were more people who didn't vote in the last presidential election. If the people who didn't vote because they were disenfranchised for whatever reason, be it didn't want to vote for either party, felt, were told so many times that their vote for a third party was worthless.
Sure.
That sort of thing. If those people actually went out and did vote for that third party, they would have gotten more votes than Trump or Hillary.
So there's two big ways, in my uneducated opinion, that you could alleviate some of this issue. First way, make election day, the voting day, make that a fucking federal holiday, paid federal holiday, period. Standardize, and with that law, standardize the law that makes it all standardize voting across the country for any party. Meaning, don't cook up some crazy horse shit with, crazy, circus gatherings and stuff like literally just make it. It's not hard. We're playing into really draconian systems with the way that electoral votes are cast and things like that. How people's ballots are cast. If we really wanted to, we could make it pretty efficient and secure. When I say we, I mean it's not an issue, so no one brings it up. There's reasoning behind that, because the parties that control everything they see the value in this draconian system. They want to kind of continue to.
Absolutely. And one of the things I'm seeing, though, in fact, I had the same discussion with my wife today about like a federal law that mandated the voting process, and I could not support that, because I'm against 99% of all federal laws. They just need to go away.
Sure.
But something, a rule or guideline saying that the individual states, however they set their voting and registration or being on the ballots, those laws and rules, they have to be consistent for all political parties.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's what I mean when I say standardization. And now, does that end up, putting Fred's dog on the ballot because of a grassroots Facebook poll? Then yeah, sure, maybe. But obviously, you put the checks. There's plenty of legalese speaking idiots in the swamp that can figure this out. So
And
it's not like it's impossible.
the conversation came up because of Pennsylvania. It just came out that the Green Party was kicked off the Pennsylvania ballots because of some legal technicality or filing technicality that neither the Democrats nor Republicans have to adhere to.
Yeah, sucks to suck, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, so that's the kind of stuff. I mean, and in Texas, your great state of Texas, the both parties had sued. I think the Green Party, I think the Democrats won and got the Green Party off the ballot. The Republicans were late and weren't able to get the Libertarian candidate off the ballot. But the parties are suing to get these challengers away. They know that they're a threat. They know that the people really want something different and are fed up with the two-party system. And it's the desperate acts of someone, clinging to life. And so I say, absolutely, if you feel like a third-party candidate is better, for the love of God, vote for that third-party candidate. Don't let somebody tell you you're a fascist because you don't vote for, Biden or you're or the other. I don't know. They're all screaming fascist, Nazis, stuff like that. Don't let them call you names because you don't vote for the candidate they want you to. Vote your conscience, man. And,
sure.
And that's what I stand by.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, and I tend to agree with you. The other solution, though, just based on what you talked about, how there's a lot of people that didn't vote, seems to me like there's a marketing issue. What I mean by that is, if you look at the population of the country, only, what is it, 100 million people vote? Was that our turnout? You got to figure out how to reach that other 260 million.
Well, the ones that are voting age and able to be registered voters, as in like.
Oh, sure, but yeah. But let's say 100 million adults voted, and that means there's another 100 million adults out there, or 70 million adults you're not reaching.
It's about 80, 90, yeah.
Whatever that fucking number is. It's almost like you should probably find out what's important to them, especially if you're a third-party candidate.
So in 2016, 138 million people voted, which was 55% of the eligible voters.
Okay.
So about 190 million people can vote. And I kind of like what Sean
250,000. Or 250 million.
Okay, so 250 million total eligible voters, and X voted, and Y's the difference. Well, you got to reach Y. Period. And it's not up to me. And I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I mean, if you're starting behind the 8 ball already, and you've got an uphill battle, but you knew that going in because of the way the electorate, the way the body politic functions in this country, you know all this. So make that part of it. I mean, it's. But we're a two-party system right now, largely because the way that the electoral decisions are made, given that you don't need to win everybody, just need to win enough. That ends up staking your state's electoral votes on that particular candidate. The response for third-party candidates is kind of follows similar logic to why people that win the popular vote don't win the election. It's like, well, people that live in New York and LA can't decide the fate of the rest of the country. Sorry, folks. But the people that feel that their voice is unheard need to get off their ass and vote, and change the colors to yellow or whatever. Well, how do you do that? Well, it starts small. I mean, don't just wait every 4 years. Get into your county, your municipal, and your state elections. I don't know. It just seems like it's really hard. Oh yeah, that's the problem, I guess. I guess that's part of the problem. It's just too fucking hard, to go down to your public library, your county post office, or your wherever
High school
and vote.
gymnasium.
Yeah, Jesus. Like you shouldn't wait till the presidential election to make it a freaking issue. The people like and the machine that is the GOP and the Democratic Party, they're like a perpetual machine. Like they don't really need any more fuel. They're just gonna keep feeding off their own feces until the whole world ceases to exist. You know what I mean? Like it's not. I'm not saying they don't need more capital. We'll always need capital. But, maybe that's part of the other problem. Maybe maybe one day we get into a situation where you remove money from politics, but then how else are you going to have career politicians if there's no money in politics? I mean, a couple centuries ago, presidencies would go broke funding the government because Congress would be damned if you take American tax dollars and use it to fund a state dinner.
Those years ago, though, also they didn't have the Federal Reserve Act in force to print more money when they needed it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm talking obviously before that, and now, things get into trouble, and instead of looking at your ledger and looking what needs to be done, you just go, well, this money salesman has decided to convince me that I just don't worry about it and continue to mortgage the future, and people continuously, stay blind to that. Be this way until well after we're dead, or conquered, or subjugated by voting in our subjugator.
What was that? That Simpsons episode? It's like, well, don't blame me. I voted for
Kang.
Kang or Krang or something.
Yeah. I mean, it's I'm glad that you're passionate about your candidate. I'm glad that you're passionate about what it represents, but the very little bit of political science that I understand, and the very little bit of the inner working of government and how it functions that I understand, it's an uphill battle to change any of that, because the two parties that control it all are heavily invested in it kind of staying. It would be cool if it was different, I suppose, but it's going to require significant change, a paradigm shift, the functionality of our government, not changing how it operates necessarily, or like the checks and balances and the crap you learn in elementary school. It's a change in how people get to a position of responsibility. I don't want to say power because that's wrong, and how they keep it and how much they actually work. I mean, it's not the same for every state, or every country, even, or every system of government, but could always be worse. That's not a very good argument. It's the truth. I don't necessarily think that you should elect people that have done terrible things while in government and elect them to executive office. I think that we should take a hard look at some of the people that have been in Congress for a very long time and try and figure out, like, what have you done for me lately?
Well, a good start would just be term limits across the board.
Yeah, sure. But a lot of careerists there. Careerists in any organization are toxic to that organization's existence and functionality. Toxic, malignant. It's they're not good for it. You shouldn't go to government to make your fortune. There should never be an avenue. You should go to government to serve. And it's not because I was a soldier and everyone. No, you should go to government to serve.
Well, it's called public service for a reason.
Sure, but your time in government should be like, like Leslie Knope in Parks and Rec. You should want to go to government to do what she does. I know that's kind of silly, but
I mean, she was kind of a hippy dippy type character, but
sure. But her
but yes,
spirit was to serve, and the funny thing is, like, I could get behind a candidate for any office as long as that was exactly what and the fact that the only thing they can all agree on is, pay raises and retirement increases is a little terrifying. It shouldn't be that way. I mean, radical ideas from my end, like, yeah, term limits, sure. Also, an amendment that states that any new law introduced needs to be a freaking page long, and if you can't fit it onto a page, you need to rethink about what you're trying to make into a law that everyone in the country has to follow. Period. It shouldn't be that complicated. Well, what about this and that? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Well, you don't know. You're just a layman. See, the problem is what we do here is really, really complicated, but everyone here is beholden to it. No, F off. Like, it's not how. Like, distill it down to Uniform Code of Military Justice level. You know what I mean? Like, do that. You don't have to do it. You don't have to go off the deep end and write a 700-page bill. Like, what? They're written that way in order to stymie the opposition. That's insane. Meanwhile, the American citizen is beholden to it and responsible for it.
Well, they're written that way so they can stuff in completely unrelated bullshit and sneak it past the people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're written to stymie the opposition. They're written to stick it to the other side.
Well, the thing is, the other side sees that and they don't care. The opposition, that's us, and that's what people need to realize.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it for sure. But it's one of those things where, what's the bill called? It's House Bill 2131-C, the bill of free hot dogs for all Americans. And what does it actually affect? Well, it turns out hot dogs are now taxed 20% higher. What? What's the name of this bill again? Like, reduction in milk production values for America. Like, okay, cool. What does the bill do? Oh, milk now costs $15 a gallon. All right, well, what? I don't understand. Why? After 800, 1600, 1200 pages of fucking legalese, and you get to the end of it. So in the end, we've increased the price of hot dogs, increased the price of milk. Americans now pay slightly more tax if you make more than $70,000 in your household annually. And we built a new naval base in Washington. Wow, what a bill. Like, what? I mean, I'm talking out of my ass at this point. I'm not saying any of that stuff's real. I'm just saying,
No, it's perspective. It's exactly what goes on.
Yeah, not so many words, but yeah.
That's why I like this guy. This guy brings like a lot of comical relief to stupid situations.
Yeah. I mean, it's a freaking tragedy, all the stuff that's happening in this country right now. I mean, there's a bunch of screaming people trying to be heard, and there's a bunch of bad actors propagating those screaming people up for their cause, and there's a bunch of bootlicking retards on the other side that are, wanting this to continue to distill into what it could potentially be one day, which I hope it never turns into that.
Oh, yeah. We're gonna ask you for one more perspective because we're running out of time before you go.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah. So Drake and I, we're interested on the booze aspect, or beers or wines or something. So we know that you're somewhat of a booze hound. Not really, but maybe. But is the wife here? Yeah. I don't know. So maybe you can give us and the audience some kind of recommendation of maybe some stuff we should have on our shelf.
Shelf? I mean, what, like liquor?
Liquor, wine, beer. What do you drink, man?
I happen to like whiskey and thin whiskey. I happen to like bourbon. For those of you looking for a decent bourbon that doesn't break the bank, that tastes good with ice, which is how I like to drink my bourbon, I like Woodford Reserve. Can't go wrong. It's a little $30 bottle and it tastes great. You don't have to spend a fortune to enjoy good bourbon.
Amen, brother.
When it comes to beer, I've never really been a beer elitist. In fact, an unpopular opinion that I hold is that IPAs all taste like shit, and I've tried every single one of them twice just to make sure. And,
No, they pretty much taste like shit.
they all taste awful.
I mean, I licked an
It tastes
asshole.
like-
It tasted like shit, but I licked it one more time
just to make sure. You know, it tastes like someone took a rusty nail, dropped it into a vat of club soda, and then sprinkled hops on it. It does not taste good. And the funny thing is, my actual tasted beer is basically, I like yard work beer. You know, oh, what's yard work beer? You know, I like light beer, man. I just like regular ass, easy drinking. You know, don't feel like I'm drinking a loaf of bread type of beer. You know, pills.
Lagers.
Yeah, there's a couple lagers in there, a couple ales, but nothing too heavy. I mean, you know.
So what you got in the fridge now?
Right now, I got Shiner Light Blonde. Also got some Pacifico downstairs in the garage. I like Pacifico. It's a good little Mexican beer. You know, I don't like the Spanish word for crown beer. I've never liked it, not because of the most recent. What does Tech Jesus call it? He calls it human malware.
What?
You know, I don't want to say the word and get you guys demonetized later on, but
okay.
you know, the human malware virus.
But I just
know?
can't believe he said that. That's what he said. That's what
He calls it human malware instead of saying the Spanish word for crown.
No, just call it Mexican crown beer.
Yeah, Mexican crown beer. Don't like that beer at all. It's always tasted awful to me.
Like piss. Something like
With
that.
or without a lime. It's always trash.
Well, one thing I wanted to do also, one thing I want to do with guests is there is this really neat card game, a social party card game called Ask Hole. And they have these questions that kind of present these moral dilemmas and things like that.
Sure.
And if you, it's Askhole, ASKHOLE.io, and you can actually see on the web the questions and do it that way. But I want to start asking people questions, and so I pulled up the site and pulled a question that I would like to ask you. You don't mind?
Sure.
Are some human lives worth more than others?
Yes.
And care to expand on that at all?
Oh,
Like what?
Now you're asking me two questions. I see how it is. Yes.
What makes one worth more than another?
Oh, I thought you were running out of time. I thought this was one question. So you want to know the morality behind that?
Yep.
Well, if that's the route you want to go, you can go around legality. You can go morality. You can do whatever you want. This is open-ended.
You want to know my reasoning?
Yep.
Reasoning, sure.
Very simplistic. Not my opinion, but based on the broad definition that is life, depending on your political alignment, according to the left and right wing of the political spectrum, unborn babies are worth less than the life of their mothers. So by virtue of a mathematical explanation, the answer to the question you originally asked me is yes.
That's a very different approach. And I mean, I agree with you. First of all, I agree with you.
Right.
That's a very different approach. And
but that approach washes my hands of any responsibility for leading one way or the other. So I understand that.
Way to go, Pontius Pilate.
Yeah. I sincerely believe that the life of, say, former concentration camp worker is worth jack shit. You know, like from World War II type of situation, when you're in a do or die situation and there is a fallen comrade and he's wounded, you will place his fleeting existence above your own by exposing yourself to the enemy in order to retrieve him. In that very immediate and distinct situation, you are now valuing someone else's life over your own. When you're a father, you have a child, you would fight, die, and kill for that child, thereby making your life worth more than your own. So, perspective, the answer to your asshole question is yes.
I agree with you, and it really does boil down to perspective. Because if you, instead of zooming in close like you did, if you zoomed all the way out, humans are just a blip in this universe. We're a parasite on this planet for, a millisecond in the life of the universe.
We're just a fleshy, wet sack of amino acids.
Exactly.
On one chemical reaction at a time.
So you could say no from that. Are human lives worth more than others? Or some human lives worth more than others in the grand scheme of things? No. But from a human perspective, I absolutely agree with you. And I think I'm going to file away that safe answer in the back of my head whenever confronted with that.
You can't use that answer. No.
That was a great answer. I mean,
no, it was a great answer, but that's his answer. You gotta. Hey.
It's okay. My opinion can inform someone else's opinion, not because I wanted them to align with me, but because my opinion came from a point of critical thought and it made sense. Then that's a good thing, That's a shared elevation of the human collective knowledge or so.
I agree with Sean's answer, and I would use the same answer without the same explanation. Like, I would say yes, and then I would go into my explanation, but I'm not going to use Sean's answer, even though that's a damn good answer. Like, +5 kudos, man.
Mm-hmm.
Woodford Reserve Double Oak on me. So, yeah. We'll go $60 bottle. But it's pretty much all the time we got for today. Really good sitting down. Little does anybody know, this guy used to be my roommate. Really cool guy. Definitely helped me culturally as far as watching television shows and movies and his perspective on the world and what he did in the military, what I do in the military, and shit, just playing video games together, rekindling our bromance many, many, many years later.
Hell yeah, bro, Chacho.
And love to have you on again, dude. I think Darian would agree. Definitely have this guy on. Love picking his brain. It's always a pleasure. You got anything for the man?
Nope. I always a pleasure, and vote Libertarian. Don't be afraid. Joe Jorgensen for president.
But yeah, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next week with another great show.